the only Glen Keane.
I wish I hadn't asked you to do that. Some of the things I've been thinking about on animation, I've been inspired by somebody you'd never expect to inspire somebody for animation. It was Magic Johnson. I've been reading this book, Magic's Touch, and it was like one of the best books on animation I've ever read. Yeah, he moves around great. But the thing is, I think you learn the most about animation when you don't look at animation, when you look at another field, or it comes in from a fresh angle. It's like your brain has heard all the stuff about squash and stretch, and maybe some of your brains haven't heard enough of that stuff. But after a while, you just go, yeah, I've heard that before. But he talked a little bit about some fundamentals here. I just wanted to read a quote from him. He says, "The guys at the top of the game, the players who make the all-star teams every year, have all perfected the fundamentals, the little unnoticeable skills that usually play a role in determining the outcome of the game. Those players have learned the fundamentals so well you hardly notice them." Do you notice that when you look at some of the stuff from Lady and the Tramp, or even some of the stuff in Little Mermaid, and the scenes just seem so natural. It's like it's hard to even analyze them because they're just so, of course you do it that way. I mean, what's so special about that? It's just done that way. And that's always a sign of something being done really well, when it's so obvious. And that only comes from knowing it so well, it's almost second nature. He also says, "My dad also taught me," this is Magic Johnson talking about, says, "My dad also taught me never to be satisfied with developing just one aspect of my game. He said I had to learn to do everything at least well, not perfect, but well enough to be able to rely on any skill whenever I needed it." So that got me thinking, all right, well, if that's true in basketball, that there's more than just shooting the basket, it's got to be true in animation too. There's got to be all kinds of different areas that we can excel in. So that's where this little thing came out. Did everybody get one of these? Okay. I was just thinking about what are the parts, what makes an animator a special animator? I mean, set apart from somebody doing Saturday morning stuff. Imagination seems to come first. He thinks creatively, his ideas are fresh yet seem obvious. Reaction to them is, of course, why didn't I think of that? And there are so many scenes like that in Mermaid that you just kick yourself. You wish you'd thought of that. Critical, and I think this is true of just about everybody here, and those who it's not true of don't stay here very long. It's they become intensely critical of their own work, continually striving to improve. You know, it's really. Did you try giving John Musker or Ron Clements a compliment after the picture? It's like you can't even hardly do it. You can't tell them, "Whoa, that was a great film." You know, it's like they don't say anything. But if you say, "You know, there was this part of that wasn't working. You know, part of your world was out of sync," and it's like, "Oh, well, yeah." Gee, you know, they suddenly confessed every sin that they had ever made in the whole picture. It was like they were real ready to do that, but they were just so critical of their own stuff. I guess we're all kind of like that. Heart. He feels what he draws. Animation to him is not purely a technical exercise, but a personal expression. It's something that comes from inside you, out on the paper, and that's something you can't really teach. It's got to be there before you even come to the studio. I think that's what will tell whether you're going to really move ahead, and it's just like the seed that nobody can put in you. I think it's already there for an animator. Intuitive, and animation principles are quickly learned and become second nature. His animation has a natural, easy fluidity to it. At first, you know, it just seems like all these principles, like you're never going to figure it out. And it was really encouraging for me when I first started, and Ollie would say, and Eric, oh, don't worry, you'll get it. You know, it'll come along. You'll get all this stuff down. You'll figure it out. I was like, yeah, this is never going to happen. But, you know, now looking back, yeah, it does. It eventually just becomes, you know, part of your work. A draftsman. His drawing has a spark of life in it, even in its most rudimentary stages. This is clearly seen in his quick sketches. A performer. Well, let me just mention one thing about draftsmanship, because I look at draftsmanship as the, if animation was a language that you're communicating to somebody else, your draftsmanship is your handwriting, how fluently you can write it down on the page. You know, it's got to become like handwriting to you, that you can express feelings inside. It's like when you're speaking to somebody, you don't think, all right, now let me see, what word is that? Now how do I construct that sentence? What are the principles of grammar here? They just flow because you learned it. And that's how draftsmanship has to be. You know, most people who are here, or everybody who's here, has been drawing ever since they were just a little kid. And so it is like a language to them. A performer. Though he may be shy and introverted, he sees animation as a chance to be that character and bring it to life. He gets great satisfaction out of entertaining an audience. I mean, it's just, I really enjoyed at the party when somebody would come up, you know, at the big rap party, and they'd be saying, oh, Ursula was just great, man. And then Ruben would come over, and you know, just kind of walking over, and I say, yeah, well, and that's Ursula right there. And they, what? You're Ursula? You know, I just really enjoyed doing that. Or Duncan, you know, where the crab is there, and you point huge guy, you know, he's this little crab, and people are always amazed. The team player. He is open to input from directors and fellow animators. You see, that's the last thing I thought of, too. I put that down because I know that's probably one of my biggest problems, is really, it's that struggle of wanting to do something really personal to yourself and wanting to be an artist, and at the same time fit in with a whole group of other people. I think it should always be a struggle, you know. And yet we've got to give in all the way through the whole picture to each other. He considers himself as part of a team and contributes for the good of the picture. The ideal animator is not necessarily a male. I put that down figuring somebody would wonder about that. Okay, so if I had to break animation down into 4 areas, the 4 fundamental areas to me, and I'm sure you guys could all come up with a different 4, but to me, it starts with draftsmanship is the number 1 thing. And all of these are just as important as each other. There's draftsmanship, then there's your skill as a communicator. How do you present an idea to an audience? And then it's your skill as an actor, getting into a character and being that character and knowing that character inside and out. And then fourthly, it's your skill as a technician. I call it technician. I couldn't think of a better word. That's all the animation principles, putting it into play, all the squash and stretch and the exaggeration and overlap, all that stuff that becomes technical and becomes second nature. You still that has to become a technical thing that you know really well. Okay, so what I want to do is just go through those 4 areas, and I've got a bunch of overhead things to show you. This is something I put up every once in a while because I really love it. It really makes me think that that's what a Disney animator should be doing, coming up with ideas that nobody else would have thought of, and that this guy over here looks at that and says, "No, why didn't I think of that? Everybody else is doing the same thing." But this guy's imagination is creating new stuff. Okay, whoa. I'm gonna watch out for my cord here. The first point in draftsmanship is let's just talk about anatomy. In anatomy, we kind of feel, I go through spurts where I really concentrate on it for a while and then I lay off of it, and I really concentrate on it for a while and lay off of it. And I just want to remind you that this is something that we need to constantly be pushing ourselves in a way so that you understand this the human figure in a real workable way, so that you're breaking it down into forms and structures like that. There's like an arm. How well do you know how an arm is put together? Do you just draw an arm? I mean, do we draw an arm like that so it's... That's weird. It's coming down on my page. Anyways, I mean, what is this? This is all very flat, and when we draw it in animation, it's easy just to think that, because maybe that's all we have to draw. All you have to get away with is just an outline of an arm. But really, in your mind, are you thinking that? Are you thinking, you know that there's a bones or a muscle mass here, so that when you draw this, you just put a little extra line. It's those little extra things that go in and make this drawing work. And then coming down and knowing that this mass down here is actually an elevation below this one up here. It's like there's a step down that happens there, you know? And it fits in over into this arm. You know, you've got all these intersecting forms that are working. Bridgman's got a great book on just helping you to really think of these planes, angles coming back and forth on each other. How well do you know the ear? I mean, it's like, I'll just draw the ear and they're just going to rough it in. Somebody will take care of it. Well, the structure of an ear has really got a neat design to it. It'd be worth looking at. Eyes. If there's anything, that's the key part of a character. Everybody focuses on the eyes of character. A neck. How does the neck fit into the body? Do we draw a neck so it just comes off the...
That's it.
There. I got to draw it like this. Does the neck just come off the body like that? Because, I mean, it kind of, as a kid draws it, that's how it is. We've got to get past the point where we're drawing just what you see. You got to draw what you know. And actually, the spinal cord comes up in the back, and that head sits here. And the neck doesn't sit square in the middle of, like if this is the head, the neck doesn't sit square in the middle. It sits way in the back. And then the whole head rests, rocks in the front. There's a whole lot of weight here. And it fits into the rib cage like that. So there's actually a flow that does this. And as soon as you start getting that into any character, whether it's Bernard or any character that you're working that neck in so the head isn't just stuck on, it really starts coming to life. Tough perspective problems. How well do we handle that? A rhythm in our drawings is just such a beautiful flow that's going on from down here all the way up to the top, and this constant twisting of the shapes going on. Freddie Moore drawing. It's just, you can't look at that and not know what he's talking about with the rhythm. I mean, you can't look at that and have that in front of your desk and not start to put that into your work. It's a John Lounsbury drawing, and there's just such a great feeling of force that runs down this whole figure. There's a flow from here that goes all the way up to there. Rather than having the chest here in the middle and the head in the center, he's pulled everything to one way, another. Some great rhythm in that drawing. Some really nice twist going on here, pulling all the way over here. It's each of these forms has turned to its furthest extent. You know, like this, the chest can't turn any further than that, and the head can't turn any further than that. Everything has gone to its limit. It's a great experiment in that. What about form in drawing? Being able to draw something so it really goes around the character. Call it drawing into the page. So as you're drawing, you're thinking around that form. This is something I did at a jazz concert. This guy Major Holly, and it's design. Really looking for what is the shape of that head? Is it just a round head, or it's kind of like a square box? Making little notes, that kind of a thing. This is something from a life drawing class I went to, just playing with the tilts on a character. When you end up with a character and it just looks kind of boring, it's often because you need to tilt something one way or the other. It's too static. In this case, this is playing against that, the hip playing against the shoulder. In this case, it's the hip playing with the shoulder, except it's a progression. It goes from here then to there. You know, they're both interesting. Animal drawings. I just love the clarity of this baboon, the way he really breaks that shape and design. Just in terms of design, you notice in that drawing the baboon how there's large areas of masses, and then it all kind of narrows down into a very small area here. You know, he has a big sweeping shape in here, and then it all confines down into that one little area there. And that works out in animation too. Now let's say, I don't really remember how to draw Bernard. I haven't drawn him yet, but let's just say a mouse, okay? Now we got a design for this mouse, and we'll have everything basically dead center. Now, you may draw him right on model, and the character has been designed, but that design is doing nothing. It's a dead design. Even though you draw it right on model, it's still a dead design. The thing that makes a design have life is expression. As soon as you enter expression into this, you can't have an expression happen without starting to group these different elements together, because that's what expression does, is it starts to shift from everything being in an equal spot to scrunching them in one form closer to each other. So it's like, let's say he's any kind of expression. Everything is kind of now grouping into this one area. Suddenly the design is working, where this area is all open over here, and this area is all coming together over there. So watch out for blandness in those elements in your expression. Really try to push them together. And there's also just a thing about feeling the character. You know, draftsmanship and expression. When let's say you're going to draw an attitude, and it's this guy is angry. Well, you can draw, you know, an angry face you know, like that. It's off the page. Draw an angry face like that. Or you can really start to feel the flesh of that expression. Feeling the brow coming down. And as you're doing it, you're really kind of experiencing this whole thing. And your knowledge of anatomy is helping you through this whole thing, because I know that there's an eye socket here that eye sits in. And as this comes down, it's scrunching in here, and this eyelid is kind of pushing up into there. And then I can feel the cheek being pushed up in here like that. And the nose wants to snarl like a tiger, but a human doesn't do that, but that's what it wants to do when I'm drawing it. That's how I'm feeling. And the mouth wants to pull back all the way if it could, but it can't. It's limited, but it comes up like this. And you can feel the teeth coming around, and you can feel them going back into the head. You can feel the muscle being pushed out on the side like this. And these drawings don't have to be complex. I just draw it because it's real to me, and I've got to express it somehow in there. You know, so the forehead can actually bulge out a little bit there and then come in here. Yeah, it's a pretty frightening looking drawing. Anyways, that's expression. These are some of Andreas's drawings of animals, of a cat. A lot of confidence in his stuff when he's doing animals like that. And it's all based on being really familiar with what that anatomy is. There's also, in animation, you take something and exaggerate it. Like when Ariel is singing in Part of Your World, she goes up and leans on the globe and she says, "I want more." Well, fortunately, it wasn't me that was singing. From her expression, you know, there's got to be a lot of exaggeration that goes in. If I just trace this exactly for what's there, it would look really dead and lifeless. But just by pushing it, you know, it starts to have a design and a life of its own, and you can't really just trace something off of there. It's a matter of plussing it, pushing it further. I was working on this eagle for rescuers, and first design was this, and it was based on a photograph, and yeah, now that really feels like an eagle. And then Brian cleaned it up, and he has the horrible task of trying to clean up my drawings after I shade them. He can't do any shading. It just has to be line, because I can fake it with all my shading. And then he kept coming up with these drawings that looked like pigeons. Even though they were line for line what I had here. I thought, well, something's wrong here. We're doing something wrong. And Brian kept telling me, well, I think you got to exaggerate it more. So I went back into it, and I thought, well, let me see, I'll push. Gee, I wish I could just have this light on the top. I'll push the head so the chest comes out a little bit further, you know, like that. And I thought, well, that's working pretty nice, but you know, this is kind of how the whole body was relating at that point. I thought, no, I think I need to make that head a little bit smaller in scale, so that it was starting to feel better there. So then I thought, well, the chest, he doesn't feel chesty more and powerful enough, or she doesn't. So I built that out more, and it still didn't feel like a huge bird. This bird is supposed to be 10 feet tall. You know, how do you make something feel 10 feet tall? Well, finally it came down to, well, all right, let's really push that that head very small up here and just make everything else massive down there. And I did this all on, one drawing after another in about an hour, just putting down over top and over top and over top. And then I thought, gee, it'd be interesting to flip back and see what the first one looked like. And I flipped back, it was like, oh, that is awful. Between this and that, and I was satisfied with that. It's weird, you're just satisfied with something until you start pushing it and experimenting. Don't be settling for something that seems to be working. It can actually work better. Okay, so that's the draftsmanship side of it. I want to talk a little bit about the communication side. This was a scene that Razul was taking, and this was the story sketch in the eagle sequence in Rescuers. Now, Razul's approach to doing something is to really explore as many avenues as possible. So he started playing around with different ways of drawing that cliff. See, the kid right here is climbing up to the top, and Marahute is supposed to be up there, the huge eagle. So then he started playing it up higher, and we talked about pulling in this mass of the mountain further into the field. Then he was, well, what if we push the angle more this way? What if we had this in the center of spiraling clouds? How does it feel from a long shot? Does it feel closer, but looking up on him? Does it feel like if this whole cliff was coming out and he's climbing like that? What if the whole screen was filled with the cliff and it's just way over there? Or kind of a combination of them where you have the massive cliff but the clouds spiraling in there. I think this is the one they went with. Some of the things I like about this one, though. But there's also a clarity, how long it's going to take for you to read this. You're going to look at that cliff for a while and you may get lost and never get up to this point. I think the cameras would have to move up to show it. But anyways, the point is he was thinking about what's the best way of putting across this idea. In Quick Sketch, going over to London, did a lot of drawing of just different people sitting around. It was interesting just how many, it was like this, how many different poses people get into. This girl was on a tube train and just riding, and she was so into this book on, I think it was a book about children's dreams, and she was just intense on this thing. She didn't even know I did the drawing. This couple didn't know I did this drawing of them either. This is at the beach, just trying to again try to capture some kind of people sitting around, and then applying it to a scene. This is something from Black Cauldron that never got in, but where Taryn and Island we are talking, and I was just trying to play around with how many different ways and attitudes would Island we be sitting in as she's talking to Taryn there. And it was a lot of fun just exploring it. It was difficult to choose one. And also when you're doing quick sketching, you want to do it with an eye that you're making some kind of judgment on what you're seeing, like how straight is this back? This was at a mall, I was thinking, well, some people are straight and some people's backs are curved and their rear end sticks out in their stomach, there's just, some people's clothing is like, there's just this mass of them and their arms kind of come out. And some girls have a very high neck and their head is up here and breasts are very low, or this girl's hair is very wide. This guy's shoulders were sort of hunched. But I think that's when you start improving in your drawing, is when you start asking yourself to accomplish something in your sketch. You look at someone and you try to capture it. This was my daughter Claire. And I liked the way she was writing it, doing her homework. I thought, oh, that's neat. So I just sketched a thing of her doing, the way her elbows were in and her feet are tight. Everything is saying concentration in that little sketch. This is a friend of mine, Randy Cook, who would go out and see things, and he would come back and just sketch them out. This was at a science fiction convention. I mean, these are real people. You know them. This guy's saying, gee, I don't know what this is. Yeah, this guy's saying, see, look, there's the matte line. See it, huh? Well, look, it's right here, see? Hey, you steal this or what, There's an alien here looking at these guys and he's saying, what a bunch of wimps. I was at the Raiders game the other day with Rick Farmelo and I was noticing the contrast between the refs and the football players. This was a guy who just did some sketches of his daughter. He's Eric Stemp or something like that. Beautiful sketches. Notice the way a girl was at the beach, just had this blanket wrapped around them, this big, massive shape. This was something that Ronald Searle did when he was in concentration camp for the Japanese. And this was 3 cats that became their Christmas dinner. So he wanted to sketch them before he ate them. I mean, there's a guy, he's drawing. He's just doing it all the time. He's noticing, and this was a sailor or the captain of their boat. Another Searle comment. It was just, it's just great. Just little, and I love just the fact that he puts the lace on her dress, and this big. Okay, now I was so excited a couple days ago. Russ shared this book with me. It's called Man Watching. It should be required reading for every animator, I think. And it's just this guy going into analyzing the way people do things and what it means, what gestures mean. Why are we scratching our head? Like yesterday I was having a meeting with Peter and we were talking about a contract, and so I'm kind of like, so why am I scratching my head? Why am I biting my thumb? It's like all these things I was wondering. And then I was reading it. Oh, that's why. I was really insecure. It's like these are different, what they call baton signals. And they're gestures we do as we're speaking. We talk, and it's a way to describe what it is that's in our head. We've seen all of these. The air hold, they calls it. The bent hand. There's a certain attitude with that. Trying to grasp some principle, try to understand it. The hand chop, where you're cutting through a problem. The hand scissors, the hand jab. That's my dad always does that. It's like he's going to stick his idea right into you, and you're going to get it. I do this with the kids in the morning when I'm trying to get them up for school. Come on, you guys, did you get up? And it's like you're begging, please. This is my gesture when Kathleen comes in and asks for more footage. It's like, well, it's coming. But these things are all saying something. It's like, get out of here. So he goes through and he's got different photographs of people actually doing these. Charles de Gaulle, he's trying to gain control, and it's coming across in his trying to gain control of the audience, and is showing in his gesture. This is the hand chop. The guy's really emphasizing his point, cutting through all the the extraneous stuff. Here's the guy doing the begging. This is the very domineering speaker. You know, this is an interesting one. It's called the palm back baton, and it's used by gesticulators attempting to embrace a concept. The hands appear to embrace an invisible companion. You know, it's like, well, you know, it's like I got this idea. You know, you can just feel it, but you can't say it. You know, we should be doing stuff like that in our animation. I was thinking about how I first started animating, and everything was like, well, hi there. You know, it's like, oh, it's over there. You know, and everything is. It was just, it was weird. It wasn't real. Nobody does that. I feel like that's when interviewers come and they say, all right, well, what new ground is Disney going in? I always say, well, it's not the technical stuff because they want to know about the computers. Say it's in the subtlety and the acting. It's like how acting in the old films in the 40s, it's very studied acting, but it's lacking this realism of today, and that's what animation has to break into something that's communicating our ideas a lot clearer. I think Mermaid was doing it, and we've taken a look at a couple of the scenes that I thought were really doing it today. This is group posturing, or postural echo, he calls it. How when people sit together, they kind of all reflect the same attitudes in a group. Like if somebody came into this crowd here and just kind of sat down there and kind of slumped out like this, everybody would look at them as some oddball because they don't sit very carefully like that. It's just like a natural design too. Everything fits in that. It's as if God just designed it like that. These people did it. I saw this in People magazine. I don't know why I was looking at People magazine, but there's all these. This is a three-legged race, I guess, and these people are tied together. And I thought, well, if you're tied together, then it even emphasizes that much more. I mean, they really take on each other's characteristics. These guys become one person. Both arms are, it's like they're just one. Both these girls leaning down here, you know, it's like they're mirrors of each other. It's amazing. It would be easy in animation to ruin that. I mean, I think if we did that, you'd think, well, I see, I got to have this guy doing this. Oh, this isn't interesting. I'll have this person standing and that person going down, but it wouldn't be real, you know. Love that expression. He goes into gazes, different kinds of gazes and what they mean. Goes into why we touch our face. He says the hand pressed to the mouth recalls moments of security as an infant at the mother's breast. That's what I was doing in Peter's house this morning. While the hand straying to the chin stimulates a caress. This girl, I mean, the whole body hugging it really shows a feeling of desire to be comforted. The self-hug, they call it. This is the nose touch. That he says that it's an action associated with momentary stress at times when a man's inner thoughts do not reflect his outward calm. You know, if you're going in to talk to somebody, or if somebody comes into your room, you know, and they said, hey, I saw your scene, and, you know, somebody from layout, and you changed the layout on it. Hey, I saw your scene. It looked pretty good. So what happened with the layout there? You know, so they're like going, what did you do to my layout? What did you? That's what they want to say. This is a nice lecture, isn't it? Oh, this overkill signal. This is great. Sometimes people go too far, you know, with their expressions. Let me just show you, like this lady. You know, the lady probably just said, oh, did you hear the prices of peas are a lot more this week? Oh, no! You know, it's like way too much for the occasion. Well, here's this guy. At first he comes in feeling very awkward and nervous. And he comes up to shake this big businessman's hand, and he's wiggly lines and everything, and realizes the guy's not going to bite him. And nothing's going to happen. The guy's still friendly. He puts his hands in his pockets, and he starts to relax, and that's probably where he should just stay. But he keeps going a step further, and he starts telling the guy some jokes, and the guy stops his smoking. You know, he notices something's wrong. He starts looking at this guy as the guy starts becoming more obnoxious, and he gets really comfortable, and he starts blabbing away, and he goes way out of hand, and finally the guy just blows the smoke on him. Now, this was really interesting. Personal space. How people don't, come in really close unless it's there's a reason. I mean, there's that space that you break. It's like in the scene where Ariel falls off the rock and lands in Eric's arms. When we were first videotaping Josh and Sherry doing it, we kept trying to push them closer together, and in drawing it, I pushed them even trying to get them closer together so that they're just really breaking that plane, so you feel there's some kind of magnetism going there, and then held it out that much longer to make them feel awkward at that moment. This is a barrier signals. If you cross your arms in front and contact your body, another part of your body, it's like a signal of when you're entering a new situation, coming into a room, and like this lady grabs her purse there. It's just an unconscious way of saying, I'm not sure about this photographer, or this guy here doing his cufflinks. It's interesting that all of these people were having pictures taken of them right at that moment. They're kind of like, ooh, yikes. Triumph. It's just when there's something wonderful happens, you got to see it, because what is it about us that we have to? What is it about us that we have to express ourselves where we're feeling good? Everything has got to go up. I was thinking, if we have a character in a film that has been going through something and has finally triumphed, you got to let him do something like that. You got to pay it off. It was like, Rick and I at this Raiders game, it went into overtime, and they had to kick this field goal, and the crowd was standing there. Everybody's watching, and Rick had his son Colin, and I had my son Max, so we picked both of our sons up. We got these kids that are, 5 years past the point that they should be on your back or anything. And we're holding them up, and they kick the field goal, and it makes it through the post, and everybody just cheers and is throwing their arms up, and Rick and I are both throwing our kids up in the air. It's like, what are we doing? We're killing ourselves, but we have to do this thing, And the kids, they both had their arms up like this. It was I'll never forget that. They'll probably never forget it. It was just neat. This was intention movements. It's really anticipation. But when we're about to do something, this is when Nadia Comaneci won. She's about to hear, her name be called, as the winner, and she's about to stand up, but she's getting ready. They're talking about how you can tell. It's like if a person is sitting there relaxed and they're about to get up, they move to the edge of the chair. But if something stops them, then they kind of stay there for a second. But it's really signaling, I'm about to leave. If you have a character that's about to exit a scene, you don't want to have him just kind of sitting like this if he's thinking about leaving. If he's thinking about leaving, his body should be starting to lean that way. I notice that when I'm talking to somebody and I know I have to be somewhere, I don't face them straight on. I kind of turn like this, like, yeah, okay. get mad at me if I do that. But just to illustrate this, I don't know that there's anybody here that's doing this in their animation better than Duncan, and his stuff on Sebastian is just really great. And there's this scene that I want to show where right at the end of the picture, Triton says something about, he's talking to Sebastian. Sebastian said, "It's as I always say." And just watch what he does with his claws. These things could become a problem. They could be just like this, but he uses them as hands, and he focuses this claw at this point. He says, "It's like I always say." And it's just for a moment, but I caught it, and it was like, yeah, he's trying to center all of his attention. It's like, zoop, and then he's going to talk, and then he says, the king says, "Oh, you always say that," and it's like, and it's just everything. Watch his stuff, and it's really beautiful. Go ahead, Bill. Whoop. That's not it. Oh, wait, yeah, it is. Sorry, Bill.
She really does love him, doesn't she, Sebastian?
Well, it's like I always say, Your Majesty. Children got to be free to lead their own lives.
You always say that?
Could you rewind that, Bill?
I guess there's just what?
It's a really subtle thing, and actually I think Duncan could have taken it and done more with that. But it was...
She really does love him, doesn't she, Sebastian?
Well, it's like I always say, Your Majesty. Children got to be free to lead their own lives.
You always say that?
Okay. I just love that. I want to show you a couple different animators' work from the Little Mermaid, and also some stuff from Rescuers. Before I do this, you know how you take sequences start off sometimes in kind of a they're almost there. What the storyman is doing is he's giving the animator the material to do the acting with, and that's the next aspect of this lecture, is going from the draftsmanship to the communication to our acting. Now you can't really get into the acting unless you've got a great voice, reading, and also some really good story business. And there was a sequence in Rescuers where Bernard and Bianca come and they first see Wilbur, and we had this meeting at 7:30 in the morning. And Jeffrey wanted to go over this board, and Joe Ranf was going to go through it for him, and everybody's just kind of like coming in, sits down, and I thought, oh man, these poor guys, how are they ever going to sell this board to Jeffrey? But Jeffrey is an amazing guy, because he walks in, he's got his Diet Coke about this big, he's, "Okay guys, what do you got here?" And he just starts drinking it. And Joe, just cold turkey, starts going through the board. Well, Bernard comes up, and he presented the board, and Jeffrey immediately said, well, he started making some comments on when you meet Wilbur, that he thought, well, we don't really get to know enough about this guy. This is another Duncan scene. Bill, could you put in that the half inch now? Okay. This is where I was just shocked when I saw Duncan's thumbnails. I asked him, I said, "Do you have any thumbnail stuff that you keep?" And he said, "Well, yeah, I'll go through and see if I can find something for you." And it's like these things, it's like he cut out the extremes and put them down here. You know, I said, well, what's your approach to animating? And he said, well, it's basically like what you said that you do. You blow up your thumbnails and you use those as your extremes. I mean, he literally does that. These things are perfect all the way through. So don't be intimidated by that, because there's others that don't go quite this far. They're saying, this is the most humiliating day of my life. But he's hitting almost every accent in there. And her hand comes in. It's nicely staged, too, with this thing coming up here, and he just squashes down, you know, and he kind of backs away and looks up in a sort of offended way at her. So she walks away, and he starts telling her, you gotta bat your eyes like this. See how beautiful the flow of this action is that he's getting with this crab? And what's neat is that he doesn't break the design of the crab. You know, he doesn't reverse this line of the shell, because if you reversed that into this, he wouldn't feel like a hard crab anymore. But he gets the flow with these feet going up there at the line of action. You gotta bat your eyes like this. You gotta, and it starts getting into the P. You gotta pucker your lips like this. You know, he anticipates slightly here and pushes the accent out there. He's even written down bat, bat, bat. That's what's going to happen. Then he sees, oh, actually this one went a little earlier, but I'll skip that one. Then he sees that she's laying down, and he softens. Isn't it just so nice the way he plays the claw there like hands. He just kind of melts a little bit. You know, and then he goes to walk off. Okay, Bill, why don't you play that?
This has got to be, without a doubt, the single most humiliating day of my life. I hope that you appreciate what I go through for you, young lady. Now, we got to make a plan to get that boy to kiss you. Tomorrow, when he takes you for that ride, you gotta look your best. You gotta bat your eyes like this. You gotta poke out your lips.
No, that's okay. It's such poor quality.
You are hopeless, chap. You know that. Completely hopeless.
Okay. This is some of Mark Hen's thumbnails in Rescuers. I really love Mark's simple way of handling these thumbnail sketches. I think it actually goes like this. There's, in a very subtle way, the body here in this pose is a little anticipation for this reaction where he says, tonight, it just straightens up just a hair, and then he gets ready to leave, and you see a slight little reverse happening here as he starts leaning forward and going out this way. You know, those lines, they all have a purpose and a meaning, why he's doing them that way. This is a scene of Bianca. I love the solidity he gets even in these sketches, and also the way he draws her legs. It's more feminine, the way her feet are coming in, everything is is a little closer in than Bernard. So everything is a little bit more spread out. So as she stands to get up, he squashes down a little bit and pushes forward. They're very clear. This was Little Mermaid. Mark was playing around with the idea of when you cut back to see Ariel, that maybe she could be playing with some bubbles. You know, like the first time she'd seen a bubble floating in air, she would pop it or blow somehow, or he was playing with like a soap beard idea, what it would be like with that, or grabbing some soap and squirting out there. Bill, you want to play that?
C.
Wait, Bill. It's on the same cassette. Yeah. It's the same one that, you know, from the last tape. Yeah.
No, you need help. Whoa, careful. Careful, easy. Gee, you must have really been through something. Don't worry. No, I'll help you. Come on. I'll be okay.
Washed up from a shipwreck. Oh, the poor thing. We'll have you feeling better in no time.
Carlotta. Okay. You can stop it, Bill. Is that, can you see what's going on? I can't. It's really bad quality. These are some of Dave Steffen's thumbnails for the Roger Rabbit thing that they're working on down there, or that they finished. Got such a great line of action. Like you can just see where Roger is taking care of, you know, baby Herman, and the mother is pointing at him there. And he's kissing her hand, you know, trying to butter her up. So it's just this beautiful flow that he's got going, you know, here. He's painting her fingernails, too. But he's playing, he's got a nice thing happening, though, with this curve line of action going here, but very angular with the arm. You know, it's got a nice change in there. Okay. Let me just show you the approach that I go through, and not the thumbnail side of it, but the actual animation. I don't know if this is going to make any sense without being able to flip, but we'll just run through it and see. This is where Ariel swims up and says, "What's a fire in? Why does it? What's the word burn?" You know, she goes and comes up to the painting here. This was a scene that we didn't really use any live action with, so it was more just straight ahead type of stuff. But I tried to really work it so that I was animating simple shapes, blocking it in so that it wouldn't get out of hand as you're trying to draw this complicated figure through the whole thing. Let's see, so yeah, there's no point in even showing you that because you can't really see it that way. But the drawings, anyway, they go from about this stage where I'm just trying to get the action here, like she turns and she pulls her hair back, and then I'll go back into it and try to pull it into something that's more like along these lines. where you're feeling more the expression. I won't worry too much about the subtleties at this point. You know, here she's just anticipating squashing down. And I just kind of throw some lines in there and get a feeling. My point at this stage is to try to go through it as fast as I can, to get my feeling out on the paper as fast as I can hurry it through, because as soon as I start stumbling and belaboring something, I know that I'm not acting any longer and I'm just drawing. So this is the handwriting stage. This is one of Ruben's thumbnails for backwards, upside down. Around. Okay. He was really getting a nice flow going on with this fat character here. I mean, that's just so expressive. It's all very clear too. Now look at me, wasted away to practically nothing. I mean, things like this aren't an accident. You know, that he gets her to be in an upside down position with her stomach on the top, so you really see it the clearest when she says nothing. I mean, it's that happens there because he's trying to stage it that way. And practically starving. You know, you wouldn't want to do that line upside down. You'd want to have her turn around so you can really see the expression on her face. And then it goes on. Bill, you want to?
Hurry home, princess. We wouldn't want to miss old Daddy's celebration, now would we?
Celebration indeed. Oh, bah! In my day, we had fantastical feasts when I lived in the palace.
And now look at me, wasted away to practically nothing.
Banished and exiled and practically starving, while he and his flimsy fish folks celebrate. Well, I'll give 'em something to celebrate soon enough.
Okay. Ruben, was they when her belly was up there? Was that kind of lost in the black background?
Yeah.
Was it that way in the final thing too?
Well, this you can't see this little here in the final.
Yeah.
You can see a little better.
This is one of my favorite scenes in the picture. Mark is working out, where Ariel realizes that Eric is going to marry this other girl, Vanessa. And he's just, we had live action on the thing, but he still went through the process of thumbnailing it out to think it through and simplifying it down. So like here he's got a little arrow, and rather than when she comes around there, she hits this pose against, she hits the pillar, and you do this thing with this hand. It says twists hand on pillar. And then it goes down to this attitude and up to there where she's rubbing her hand in her face. I think it was a little more complex in the live action. He's got quick exhale and inhale, a more thought process. So he wants to add more time into the live action that he got. Okay, Bill.
Wish you luck. I'll catch you later. I wouldn't miss it.
Well, now, Eric, it appears that I was mistaken. This mystery maiden of yours does, in fact, exist. And she is lovely. Congratulations, my dear.
We wish to be married as soon as possible.
Oh, yes, of course, Eric, but these things do take time, you know.
This afternoon, Grimsby. The wedding ship departs at sunset.
Oh. Oh, very well, Eric. As you wish.